If you are the type of person who likes to be on the go, who's organized, who likes to interact with people and have every day be different, then this is absolutely the job for you.
We want workers to know that when you make a commitment to this job, it's more than just a job. You're really touching people's lives. You're not just clocking in, clocking out, doing a job.
I have always been drawn to the relationship aspect or the human aspect of almost anything. So social work was one of the only things that I could think of that I could actually get a paycheck to work with people and to kind of work in relationships. In fact, all through my education I was very, very staunchly never going to go into child welfare. And I think from the outside the system can look so grisly that a lot of times it's easier to just disregard it and put your blinders on.
I've always enjoyed people. I started in the helping profession right out of high school. Had a lot of different opportunities to work with vulnerable populations, and a degree in social work definitely was kind of the next step for me.
You know, getting into this field, my goal was, I just really enjoy kids, and I just wanted to be able to make sure that their needs were always being met. But what has come of this is, you learn to appreciate the families as a whole too.
And it's always been the same question, why did you pick social work? And for the longest time I would rack my brain trying to come up with the correct answer. And one day I just realized that I did not pick social work picked me.
My role in this job is to go out and investigate and assess child abuse neglect allegations, also non-abuse neglect allegations. I think a lot of people in the community think that we are there to snatch babies, to remove children from their home. Our real job and role is to make sure that children are safe. We would prefer that they do that remaining in their home because we understand that's very traumatic for the family and especially the child for them to be removed from the home. So we would definitely prefer to do that in the home. So the misconception is that we take babies when in reality our goal is to leave them in their home as long as their welfare is not in danger.
To remove a kid is a huge deal, so we got to make sure that, the reason we're doing it is going to get that child in a situation where they are in less harm than they were to begin with. We are the ones who go out there and we're the ones who have met the family, talked to the child, gathered the information. I think a lot of people do think that, I go out there and have the power to just remove a kid. Well, I don't have the power to do that, and I don't get to make that decision on my own.
I never know what I'm going to do day by day. It depends on, what client needs happen. I schedule visits. I meet with families at home. I meet with them in the office. I meet with them in the community. I work intensely with them to maintain, not only just maintain them in the home, but also to provide some skills for families to be successful.
You work in the homes with the family. Because you want to meet them where they're at. They're more relaxed, and so you're going to see more of the realistic interactions with the parents or the kids with each other, or the parents and the children. So that then gives you more of an understanding of what your role is going to be to help the family.
I'm the Kinship Care Coordinator, and what I do is explore families to locate relatives, and then once we've located relatives, I explore their home to see if they will be appropriate for placement while the children are in the foster care system.
We try to find resources within the family unit for the children that are pulled out for abuse, abandonment, or neglect, and we try to assess homes within the extended part of their family, their aunts and uncles and grandmas, and anybody who really has a connection with them, and try to keep children in that family unit, in the same culture, in that same extended family network, so they can have a less of a traumatic move if they are since they are separated from their parents.
I work as a therapeutic case manager, and my goal is to achieve timely permanency for children in foster care. Permanency can be achieved through reintegration, adoption, custodianship, or even if a child ages out, through independent living.
Basically, my job is to coordinate the community partners. So I work with courts, I work with mental health systems, I might work with drug and alcohol systems, to work together to help the children and the families work towards reintegration.
I support foster families as they have placements of foster children. I visit them periodically on a regular basis. I receive phone calls, do crisis management, all of those things needed to support the families.
And sometimes, despite all of the effort and the teamwork that people put into getting the children reintegrated, that ultimately they all don't get to go home. And so now you have these kids that need a forever mom and dad or a forever family.
Really, we work in partnership with one another to really identify.
There are many different pieces to adoption. You have to identify families that would like to adopt. You have to work with those families, train them, prepare them for learning how to be an advocate for their children. There's the other piece of ensuring children are prepared to adopt, and have they processed and have they grieved the loss of their birth family, and where are they at in that? What kind of support system do they need? And we try to incorporate both those pieces and bring that together.
First day on the job, I can still remember everything about it. It was unforgettable, and it wasn't what I was expected. It was exciting. It was a little nerve-wracking. It was a little scary. Families don't always want you there necessarily. They're there because they have to be there, whether it be the court saying that they need to be involved with you or SRS saying that they need to be involved with you.
And I was one of the workers who thought, I want to work with kids. But the more I worked with kids, the more I worked with foster parents, the more I realized I don't live in that home. So to help children, I've got to help those families.
It's very challenging. You know, initially your families are angry, which is to be expected. They're scared, they're concerned, they don't know what exactly all this means. In that time, you're also trying to work with them on their feelings and their anger and their frustration and gather background information. What's going on with the family? Where are your struggles?
Okay, permítame un momento. She works from 6 a.m. to 2 p.m.
It takes a lot of patience in working with families who sometimes struggle with substance abuse, who struggle with parenting skills, and some of them struggle with the more basic things like making sure that they have a job or a house, or having utilities on in their home, having food and water.
There's no cookie cutter family, so every solution is going to be different. Some of the challenges we face are poverty with families. It's difficult for families often to get to and from appointments because of lack of transportation. Some of the challenges we also face with families are, you know, when they're doing so well and progress is being made and there's some sort of a roadblock. Maybe they've relapsed using drugs and alcohol. maybe they've skipped a visit, and to see the disappointment on a child's face when their mom and dad doesn't show up for a visit is really difficult to see.
Well, this job is definitely not the same thing every day. You could start off the week with an emergency disruption and then end with an adoption finalization and everything in between. I think the worker, in order to make this job more successful for them, needs to be very, very flexible and very adaptive.
You do have to be flexible and a multitasker. You know, if you are somebody that's obsessed with starting a project and finishing it in that day or in that week, you might struggle a bit in this position. If you need something answered right there in that moment, you might struggle if you need to see an immediate progress. People don't change overnight. Adoptive families don't get perfect overnight. Children don't get perfect overnight. And problems don't get solved overnight. Not when you're working with people's lives. That's very unrealistic.
You also have the other aspect of outcomes and expectations that fall on you as a responsibility. You know, getting your case plans turned in on time, getting your paperwork done on time, making sure, you know, the least amount of kids are going out of home because your role is to maintain them in the home. You can't just go into it thinking, I have all these skills, I know how to work with families, and that's all I'm going to have to do.
We see some very difficult situations with children. It surprises me how little the public is informed about child welfare and what we do. We're perceived as interfering in families' lives. And I think the best part of this job is to prove that otherwise. When we can help a family achieve reintegration, when we can see families be successful, it proves it otherwise.
I think some of the challenges that happen with our job is, and especially when you first start, are things like you have no idea what you're walking into. I mean, it may be in the report that it's just an overwhelmed mom with an infant. Well, you go up to the door, you knock on it, and you've got 3 men sitting in the house, drugs all over the place, and you're like, I don't know about this. This isn't what it said was going to be on the report here. So yeah, I mean, you've got to walk in there expecting anything. And that was kind of one of the scariest things was, you know, you go up to a door, you knock on it, you don't know who's on the other side of it.
You have to be prepared for anything. You're not always in the best neighborhoods. You might be going into a house where it can be pretty volatile. There's concerns of domestic violence. So you might not want to go by yourself, you know, you might have to take somebody with you. One of your roles is, you know, you're a mandated reporter. You have to report concerns of any sort of child abuse and neglect. And that might not always feel good.
He came into custody 2 days ago. He's been expelled from school and truant from many schools. I think when you first start out in this field, everything does seem very overwhelming and shocking at times. I can remember situations and cases where I just came home and cried, and it was hard.
Something that I'm wondering about, he would have been 13. That would have been a time in his life where he's starting to ask questions, he's starting to put 2 and 2 together. I'm wondering where we should start as far as therapy goes.
You learn to digest it in a way that it just forces you to continue to move forward and help this child to be successful and resilient.
The scariest thing when I first started doing the investigations for abuse and neglect was having to interview people. And how many people are you going to draw in that house? 4 of them. Because I think a lot of it is a new worker. You come in, you think you're going to ask something wrong. You think your job is a big deal with the interviews. Well, it is, but in a way, you just have to go in there and they're people. You have a conversation with them.
This is a line of work that every decision that we make affects families, and that can be overwhelming at times for workers.
Here, I mean, here's like the normal course of business.
I don't want social workers to be afraid of the court system. It can be scary, it can be nerve-wracking, but if you go in there knowing that each person in that room has a role in these kids' lives, and we all have one common goal, the fears go away.
Testifying is nerve-wracking, it's stressful, you get anxious. I've done it many a times now, and I still get anxious and nervous. But even being anxious and nervous, I still enjoy testifying. It's my opportunity to share with the court what I've done, or what needs to be done, or what the family has done, so the court can make a decision in the best interest of the children.
One of the biggest challenges for me that I've struggled with personally has been letting go of kids you work with, or parents you work with, or families as a whole that you're working with. She mentioned receiving a black eye, him throwing things like plates, kitchen stuff. So my understanding is primarily dad. You don't always know what happens or what the end result is ultimately. Was that child able to be successful in terms of truancy court, or was that family able to learn new ways to communicate without continuing that ongoing pattern of abuse and things that were happening in the home? Just that unknown sometimes, you know, tugs at you, or you'll be thinking about something and think, I wonder what happened to that child, and you just don't know.
This job's not 9 to 5. You don't come in at a certain time or leave at a certain time. Families' crisis don't happen during the day. One of the best times for a social worker to intervene with the family is in the middle of their crisis.
You're going to deal with budget cuts, and you're going to deal with policies, and an ever-changing part of your work is you learn something new and then it changes. You know, you learn the policy and you practice it for 2 months and then it changes. And that's just the field that we work in.
Working in a rural area, you have to learn to be very resourceful. The resources are limited. One of the difficulties is it requires a lot of traveling, but sometimes you're spending 8 hours of your 40-hour work week just on the road. So that can be a very big challenge.
For me, one of the most rewarding things is seeing families be together, whether that be kids going to live with their biological families once again, or whether that be them being adopted by their foster parents.
This may sound strange, but for me, even in the face of some of those not so pretty situations that you're walking into, it's exciting. It is exciting to work with all these different people and different families, and even though the situations may not be what they should be or what you're expecting them to be, it's exciting to figure out, you know, how can I engage this family in the face of all this, and how can together we come up with a way to start to change this.
Taking a difficult case and seeing a situation where everybody tells you it's not going to happen, this is impossible. And when you work with families and you work side by side with them and you see the progress and you are able to help them achieve permanency, and you can sit in the stands at a high school and watch this kid walk across the stage and graduate with his diploma when nobody said it would ever happen. Everybody said it'll never happen, and you were a part of that. But yeah, to be able to watch that, it's indescribable.
One of the good things about this job is and the most exciting part is I have no idea what I'm going to come up against today. I'm going to show up here, and I'm not going to have any idea what could potentially come across my desk.
I think it's kind of awesome to be a social worker in a small community, because I think that you do get, just by the nature of being a social worker in a small community, you get a reputation a little bit of as a helper or as a connector.
A lot of times when you establish that rapport with those family members and you gain their trust, it's something that isn't forgotten. And when you go around in the community, they recognize you for that, and they may call you up for simple answers or questions about things that they want to know. And so it's just really a rewarding thing, especially in the smaller communities where you know everybody knows you. It can be really rewarding.
I think it's important to know that it can be very stressful, and it can seem at times that you're by yourself, but there is lots of support. We have great supervisors, we have good coworkers, you have community support. People care about what we're doing, and it's and we're put in place to help children and help families.
My advice for a social worker thinking about coming into child welfare would be not to come into it thinking you're going to save a bunch of children or right off the bat feel like you're making a huge difference. I think one of the biggest learning curves happens in those first couple months of just learning like the rules and what the agency goal is, what the courts want to hear, how that whole thing interacts when you get there, and the process of your court reports and case plans and timelines.
Most often, this job is not black and white. Most of the time it is gray, and you have to understand and be willing to accept that there's not going to be any straight answers, and learn how to deal with it, how to accept it, and just move on.
Learn how to write, work on your writing skills. Because there is so much documentation in social work that if you can't write, if that's a struggle for you, that's going to slow you down. Learn how to manage your time. That's one thing that you get very, very good at.
Never stop asking questions. Give yourself time to learn the field. It is not something you can learn in a day, a week, a month. It takes a good year to really get a grasp on what the field entails. And even after that year, you will be learning something new every day.
When you work with people, you develop relationships with them, and it goes much deeper than the job or the paycheck by any means. And that is the part that keeps me coming back, is the relationships that I've formed with the families, and helping them do a better job helps me do a better job as well.
It's also important to recognize that not only are we making a commitment to our professional lives and our careers, but we're also making a commitment to these families. And a lot of times we have workers that will come for a few months and recognize that maybe this isn't what they thought it was, or not something that they can do, and they leave. And when they leave, that turns those families upside down. And so not only is it important for social workers to dedicate themselves to the career or to their job for an extended period of time, but it's also important to families to maintain that stability for them.
It's a job that if you get in and you can figure out your niche and get there and do the work and you feel confident in what you're doing, it's something that you can do for long term. You have to figure out how to manage your stress, you have to figure out how to not take it home with you, and you can do it. And you have to have the support.
Every child that we get to keep with extended family members, I feel like it's a small success for the agency, a small success for their numbers and things like that, but really it's a huge success for that family. For that child, it's the biggest difference.
I came to this field to help people. I do feel like I've helped people. I think at the end of the day, we can all look back across our caseload over the years and say that there's probably some people we weren't able to get through to, or some people that would have preferred they never met me. I think overall, you do get a sense of I'm doing good work. I'm making good connections with kids and families, and I'm here because I want to help.
It's more than just helping people, it's being there, it's being resourceful. Oh man, that's nice and clean out in there.
See them shine?
Yeah, that looks really good. It's knowing the resources in the community, it's knowing the people that you work with, it's knowing your coworkers and building on that strength. But also realize that it's a helping profession that gives rewards. And the rewards may not be monetary, but they are just deep down into your heart, that you're able to give a part of yourself to a client in a different way. And it's worth it. I mean, I still love what I do, and it's been 16 years that I've done social work.
There are hard days. There are days that you cry, and there are days that you kind of lose hope. But there are days that have a lot of joy attached to them, and there are days that you can take that deep breath and feel good about everything.
I'm still here because I feel like I've helped families along the way. I don't help every family that I talk to, but you really can't put a dollar amount on the families that I have helped. Seeing kids graduate high school that maybe wouldn't have otherwise. Seeing kids that are headed towards a life in either juvenile delinquency centers or the correctional facilities who find a way to turn their life around and do the right thing. Parents are in the same situation. You know, if we can work with families and help eliminate some of their problems, then it helps children, it helps strengthen the communities. Strong families lead to stronger children.
I think something that as a social worker we sometimes joke about is that the successes have to go a long way, because the families that we're working with have a lot of hurdles and a lot of struggles that they have to go through. Seeing them succeed, though, is one of the best things, and there are certain times where you see families succeed, or you see a child being adopted and having a forever home that you never forget, and for those reasons I will always do this.